This is the YouTube show of wisdom and truth. If you don't watch it, you'll go straight to hell. Now, if you think it's insane that I'd make such a claim, remember, for Muhammad, it worked very well. Welcome again to This Week in Jihad. We have the great David Wood with us, and lots of jihad to discuss. Hello, David.
Hey, you made an important point there. Say what you want about Muhammad being an evil, child molesting, murdering rapist, but his methods were successful if you want to rally people around you to support you no matter what.
Yes, that is correct. He was an extraordinarily effective manipulator of human beings.
Mm-hmm. Very good at what he did.
Yes. Somebody is saying half poem. I don't know what that means. Maybe it only half went over, but it's just going to have to be that way because it's in the trash, and I can't even see where it went now. The trash is bottomless. So, anyway, we have a very interesting jihad story today, David. Of course, jihad is raging in Syria, lots of other things going on. But this one is unusual. This one really caught my eye. Out of France. This is just incredible. The French authorities are saying that these three jihadis suspected of planning at least one violent act in the city of Poitiers. Now, those of you with historical sense, or those of you who have read the history of jihad, may know that Poitiers is where Charles Martel stopped the jihadis from advancing further in France in the year 732. And so this is where they were plotting. Now get this. The three men allegedly wanted to avenge the Arab Berber troops defeated in 732 by Charles Martel at the Battle of Poitiers. So here it is, almost 1,400 years later, almost 1,300 years later, and they're going to get revenge right at the place of their defeat. What do you think, David?
I just got an awesome movie idea. like all the descendants of the guys who lost, they want revenge, so they go. But then the French people, they don't know what to do because they're a bunch of clueless, sniveling crybabies and stuff. So they don't know what to do. So they have to go find a descendant of Charles Martel, but he's just like some dork surfer or something like this. So they have to convince him that he needs to accept his birthright and become a great warrior. And then he learns to fight jihadis, and he stops them again.
This is going to be a terrific movie.
That'd be great.
And it started right here, ladies and gentlemen, on This Week in Jihad.
When it wins the Oscar, everyone, when it wins the Oscar, this is where it started. We have a record.
That's right. So who do you see as the guy who's going to play Charles Martel's long-lost descendant, the surfer dude?
Brad
Pitt? Is he too old?
Yeah, he's probably too old. Got to be some new actor, and got to be one of those guys that they usually get for the the guys that they get to play Spider-Man. They usually get some skinny little dork who gets stronger after he gets bit by a spider. So you need some kind of dork dude, but as the movie goes on and he gets ready to fight the jihadis, he becomes tougher and tougher.
I don't know that guy's name, but I can picture him. I've seen pictures, but anyway, I look forward to seeing the movie. Anyway, we have lots of jihad out of Syria, David. Lots of things going on in Syria. One of the things that we have gotten from Hayat Tahrir al-Sham over the last few days is that they turned out to be lying when they... I know, it's hard to
believe. Robert, those are strong words.
Well, they said they were going to have equal rights for everybody in Syria, and now they're saying, you can see, this is the quote from Al-Gilani is right here on the screen. We will respond with force to those who try to prevent us from implementing Sharia. He said it. He actually had quite a lot to say about this, about how there wouldn't be any problem if nobody resisted. But if anybody,
I have to say, in a creepy way, he is right. Like, hey,
yeah,
if we walk in and you guys do exactly what we say, and those of you we tell to convert, you convert, and those of you we tell to pay the jizya, you pay the jizya, and those of you we decide to take as our sex captives and so on, as long as you go along with it, yeah.
yeah.
But the problem is people don't want to go along with it, and then they're like, oh, we have to punish you for not wanting to go along with being completely subjugated.
That reminds me of a long-standing jihadi practice. As a matter of fact, goes back to, I believe, the early days in the 7th and 8th centuries in India, where if a city resisted, they would get far worse treatment than if they surrendered. And so sometimes there are accounts in the early chronicles of cities actually getting together and saying, we can't beat these guys, and it'll get much worse for us. So let's just give in now. We have Al-Galani also saying, and I believe, let's see.
Hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you trust what that guy says?
Well, I do actually believe him when he says this. He says in another interview, when we build the Islamic Caliphate, Christians will pay jizya under Islamic Sharia. What's not to believe?
That's true. That's true. But you got to look at the eyes, not what he's saying. It's just funny that you can get a CNN reporter sitting down with that guy and it'd be like, oh, yes, we're here to make everything better and peace, and we need institutions and stability, and that's all we're focusing on, and everyone's going to be very happy. And CNN reporter be, oh, it's so great that you're taking over. So great with these wonderful words of freedom and peace and democracy that you speak of.
Yes, their cluelessness is absolutely impenetrable. They ought to go out on the battlefield. But anyway, because they wouldn't get hit, they as long as they think they're okay. Like those guys in Liberia during the Civil War, and they would go out naked onto the battlefield because they thought that their spells would repel the bullets.
Oh, and their general butt naked. They called him General Butt Naked.
That's the man.
Guys, we're not making stuff up. Look up General Butt Naked. This guy believed that there were spells on him that if he ran out on the battlefield butt naked, he would be invisible and stuff, and everyone could see him. But you really want to go mess with a guy who's running across the battlefield butt naked with his schlong in your face and stuff, and people are like, ah. So it's actually a good tactic.
Yeah. It's odd the jihadis never used it. Okay, this is another one. Oh, that's not it. Here, this is it. This is one of the Land Cruiser there. That belongs to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and this was more than one of them was spotted with this windshield sticker that says, "Your time has come, O worshippers of the cross."
Yeah, but notice they don't say your time for what. So your time for peace and tolerance.
That's no doubt it, yes.
Your time for flourishing, we say, has come.
And what's interesting is when this started to get a lot of publicity, then there was video. You can find video where I got this screenshot, but there's also video of them scraping it off, at least one of these vehicles, because of the negative publicity they were getting as a result.
Guys.
Exactly.
Be patient. Slow down. We'll get the Christians. Just got to consolidate power right now. All the same people who fell for it with the Taliban are falling for the exact same thing now. They did not learn their lesson. And
yes.
once Syria is a pile of bloody rubble and Sharia, then the next jihadi group that takes over another country 5 years from now, you'll have the exact same reporters in there. Tell us about how you're here to bring freedom and democracy to this place.
That's right. They will never get it. And here's actually an example of that. This is, now of course, on the other hand, you got to give the guy some slack, because it may be that he knows very well what he's dealing with, but he was just hoping that he could maybe manipulate them a little bit. This is the Chaldean bishop, Jesuit Bishop Antoine Audo of the Catholic Church, the Chaldean Catholics in Iraq. And he went and met with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which is a gutsy move to start with. You got to give him credit for that. And when he met with them, he was in the presence. He said, we were all present, bishops, priests, and religious. And he says, we had a very positive meeting. And the jihadis told him that they're not going to bring in any changes into the Christians' practices. And yet it seemed to be taken for granted by everyone that they were going to impose Sharia and make the Christians into dhimmis paying the jizya. Because Audo says, I told them that we, as Arab Christians, represent a unique reality in history and in the world. I recalled some examples of the history of Muslim Arabs with Christians and the contribution of Christians to this history. I added that the status of the dhimmi can be interpreted both negatively and positively, that Christians cannot be second-class citizens, and that we must work together. And he says, they seemed very interested in these considerations.
And they kept giggling for some reason. They were so giddy. They were so giddy that they kept giggling for some reason. They must really love what I'm saying.
Now, what's wrong with what he's saying? Surely he's right that the dhimmi status can be interpreted positively. Am I right?
Yeah, I guess if you if you want, but the problem is him saying that you're not going to be second-class citizen. That's exactly what a dhimmi is.
Yes.
That is exactly what a dhimmi is. Where would you get a concept of a dhimmi who's not a second-class citizen? I'm not aware of this anywhere in Islamic history. Definitely not from the time of Muhammad, where the Jews of Khaybar became his dhimmis after they're conquered and subjugated, and they had to pay 50%. 50%, Robert.
But wait, David.
50% of their annual produce, Robert. That the IRS would look at that and go, "Whoa, you guys are brutal."
David, I'm flummoxed because Islamic apologists for 20 years have told me that the jizya was less than zakat and that Christians had it better in Islamic lands than the Muslims themselves. Surely they weren't lying to me, were they?
Yeah, they were lying. The only thing you could say is that a lot of Muslim commentators believe that the amount of jizya is flexible, in that you wouldn't charge a poor person the same as you charge a rich person, and so on. And so they modify it. And so you could say on the low end for a group that's poor or something like that. Well, that wouldn't be yeah, you wouldn't be paying, if you were poor, you wouldn't be paying much zakat either. So, but I mean, yeah. So in the Muslim sources, the Jews of Khaybar, 50%. Zakat is not 50%. So
2.5%, ladies and gentlemen. Just so you know, in case any of you don't know out there, dhimmi status, according to Islamic law, involves a prohibition against building new churches, places of worship, monasteries, or a new cell, forbidden to build new synagogues for the Jews, prohibition against rebuilding destroyed churches. So the idea is you can't build new ones, you can't fix your old ones, your community will always be declining. The worship places of non-Muslims must be lower in elevation than the lowest mosques. The houses of non-Muslims must be lower in elevation than the houses of Muslims. Christians can't hang crosses on the outside of the churches. Muslims can enter the churches any time of day or night. Any bells are forbidden. Raising their voices at prayer time is forbidden. Teaching non-Muslim children the Quran is forbidden. Can't show any public display of your religion, which is one reason why Hindu processions, although they're technically not dhimmis, are always attacked in India, because the public display of the religion is an offense in itself.
I just wanted to quote Ibn Kathir right here on This is his commentary on the jizya part of Surah 9, verse 29. So you have Surah 9, verse 29, ladies and gentlemen, that's a command to fight those who do not believe in Allah, specifically refers to Jews and Christians, and says that you fight them until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued. So feels themselves subdued or with willing submission. Remember, everyone has to submit. Islam is a religion of submission. You submit whether you like it or not. But Ibn Kathir's commentary, paying jizya is a sign of kufr and disgrace. He says, Allah said, until they pay the jizya. His commentary is, if they do not choose to embrace Islam, with willing submission, in defeat and subservience, and feel themselves subdued. For his commentary on what it means to for Jews and Christians to feel ourselves subdued, he says, disgraced, humiliated, and belittled. Therefore, Muslims are not allowed to honor the people of Dhimma or elevate them above Muslims, for they are miserable, disgraced, and humiliated. And then he goes on to list some of the requirements for being a dhimmi. You've already mentioned some of them, but he goes on to that. But so you have the Muslim commentators, and they're saying, hey, what is it to be a dhimmi and pay jizya? It means you've been disgraced, humiliated, and belittled.
There you have it, right there.
And here you have Christians going, hey, we hear that becoming dhimmis would be a really pretty good deal, and then we'd all be equal.
There are positive ways to look at it, David.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is. Like, I'm positive this is going to go very badly for you guys.
Yes, that's what the Chaldean bishop said. And it already is going badly for some of the Christians in Syria. That is Helena Kashuf on the left and Saman Satme on the right, Christians in Syria who were brutally murdered this past week. The murder was reported in the Syrian press as a burglary gone wrong. However, the Christian community immediately began to question that interpretation when it came out that Saman was actually beheaded. And burglars don't generally behead the people they are stealing from. The beheading...
That would be pretty rare.
Where have we heard about beheading being prescribed? You have a look on your face like I am asking you yet again, playing dumb yet again, and I don't know.
No, I wasn't even thinking, because guys, by this time we all know what the Quran says about striking their necks, and so on. And you even have translators who will translate it as strike off their heads and so on. No, I was laughing at the idea of the idea that someone would say, "Oh no, robbers do chop people's heads off." And it's like, guys, do you know what? Okay, if you're stealing someone's stuff, you probably don't want to get a bunch of blood all over you, right? You're trying to do it as neatly as possible. So if you were a burglar or something like this, you wanted to steal someone's stuff, even if you wanted to kill them, you want to do that in the least messy fashion imaginable. You want to strangle them or something like this, smother them, shoot them from a distance, something. Why would you go with the messiest possible method of getting someone out of your face? Something that's going to leave you with all sorts of evidence all over you. In other words, I have one command over here of what you are supposed to do, and strike at their necks and say, that makes sense. Or the burglar theory, which makes no sense, because that's how no burglar on the planet would kill somebody.
Okay. We also had in Homs, the Syrian city near Homs, in a Christian village, Muslims attacked Christian farmers, ridiculed them, and beat them for being infidels. So it's shaping up pretty clearly what's happening in Syria, although we still hear from the establishment media that this is a great, wonderful thing that's happened, and it will bring new peace and prosperity to Syria.
Yeah, and Robert, just for anyone who doesn't see what happens here, it's been pointed out there's really no good outcomes in a lot of these places. There's not going to be a good, wonderful outcome. It's you have an array of bad options and bad outcomes, and you try to get the least terrible outcome. But we've had these evil dictators in various places. So you had Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi and Assad. Not a fan, guys. These are bad guys. These are brutal dictators, right? What people don't understand, because here, especially in America, we have the idea, oh, get rid of the dictator and then freedom and democracy will flourish. Why? Because that's what worked for us. Oh, okay. So that's what will work everywhere else, right? Yeah, and we had this with the Arab Spring. Just get rid of all these dictators and then freedom and democracy will flourish and so on. And then, okay, what happens? What happens? Because before that, we got rid of Saddam, right? You get rid of Saddam, then what happens? Sunnis and Shias start blowing up each other's mosques. You're like, what's going on here? What just happened? We thought we got rid of the dictator and freedom and democracy. Why do they instantly start blowing up each other's mosques? Because you had people on both sides who wanted to blow up each other's mosques. They were just terrified of Saddam, because Saddam would crush you and roll into your town with tanks if you started blowing up people's mosques, right? So they were terrified of him, and then we removed the guy that they're all terrified of, and now they can do what they wanted to do. Keep in mind, not saying that Saddam was good. I'm saying evil dictator who was doing something to keep jihadis in check. If you're going to remove him, you need to replace him with something that is going to keep jihadis in check. If you don't, jihadis are going to start doing what jihadis do, because now they have the freedom to do it. And here you have Assad, evil dictator, messed up stuff going on in the prison. He's done horrible, messed up things. But he was brutal towards jihadis who are getting out of line. So if you're going to get rid of him, guess what? You better have something that replaces him, or these jihadis are going to start doing what jihadis do. And guess what? Now all of a sudden you have a bunch of jihadis going, now we can do what we wanted to Christians. We couldn't do it before because Assad would toss us into a prison. But now we're okay. Assad's gone, and there's nothing to replace him except a bunch of jihadis. And they might want to slow us down a little bit just so as not to get unwanted attention. But make no mistake, now we get to treat Christians the way we want to treat them. Now we get to treat Druze the way we want to treat Druze. Now we get to treat rival Muslim groups the way we want to treat them. And who's going to stop us now that the dictator that we were scared of is out of the way? So that's what's going to be going on here, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. All right. Meanwhile, David, we got the jihad against Israel still going on. And I believe, if I recall correctly, I saw it quickly that you did a show on this, that it turns out that the number of civilians killed in Gaza has been wildly inflated by Hamas, as, of course, we have been saying ever since not long after October 7th, 2023. But now this has been definitively established in a report. So you did a show on it. What do you have to tell us over here?
Yeah, so they only examined reports from a narrow window of a couple months of time, but they actually went through all the documents on various things and so on. And they found that the Gaza Ministry of Hell, some people call it health, but we know the truth. The Gaza Ministry of Hell was reporting a 22-year-old man dies, they would report him as a 4-year-old boy dies. 31-year-old man dies, they would report it as an infant being killed. A bunch of guys named Muhammad died, they report them as women dying in combat. And they're giving no indication as to how many of the people are combatants. They just list them all in the same category as if they're all civilians. And they're including natural deaths. In other words, they're an estimated 5,000 natural deaths in Gaza each year. Those got included of the casualties of war list, and other things like people dying who are listed as people killed by the IDF, and they're looking at the records going, why are these guys listed as being in the hospital for cancer treatment years earlier, and so on. So anyway, they're just fudging numbers left and right. And what was interesting, because AP and I were going through the numbers, but I was pointing out that if you factor in what the report says, Israel's estimating around 36,000 total deaths. The Ministry of Hell is estimating over 44. So if you factor in that they're reporting natural deaths and so on. They're lumping all of these together. You're getting a number that's a bit less than 40,000 total deaths. Israel's also estimating around 20 of these are Hamas combatants.
Mm.
And so think about that. So just going with that, around 40,000 total deaths, around 20,000 of them Hamas combatants. Now you're ending up with around a 1-to-1 civilian to combatant ratio, 1-to-1. That's unheard of. The ratio in World War II, when you actually had armies marching out against each other on the battlefield, was 2-to-1. It was 2-to-1 civilians to combatants. So in other words, for every soldier you kill, you're killing 2 civilians on average for World War II, where you had tanks going out against each other on battlefields and so on. Still, when you tally up all the deaths, you still end up with a 2-to-1. So to get 1-to-1 in a scenario where it's urban warfare, where the fighters are hiding in tunnels and so on, and they're using civilians as shields. They're using women and children as shields and saying, come and get us and so on. And where they admit they're trying to maximize civilian casualties to help them with propaganda. To go into that situation and still walk out with like a 1-to-1 would be unheard of. I've never heard of. I do not know of any group in the world who could pull that off. So that's, if you're just kind of looking at the numbers and what they point at, that's what you're getting. But what's interesting is, even if you go with the most wildly inflated numbers imaginable, even if you go with, you let them count all the natural deaths, you let them any man that they're classifying as a child, any man they're classifying as a woman to mess with the statistic, you could grant them everything, and you're still ending up with about a 2-to-1 civilian to combatant ratio, which would still be really, 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 really good for the type of war they're fighting. The takeaway, ladies and gentlemen, is anyone who's running their mouths about it's genocide, it's ethnic cleansing, you are a freaking idiot, an epic total moron,
or an evil liar.
Yeah, or an evil liar. Could be that too.
So we had an interesting admission from Hamas. A senior Hamas official, unnamed, said in Saudi media, Hamas is suffering from a genuine leadership crisis. The Al-Aqsa flood attack, that is the October 7th massacre of 1,200 Israelis, backfired on us, submerging us in a sea of blood and crises. The Al-Aqsa flood attack backfired on us, submerging us in a sea of blood and crises. I don't recall in anywhere in modern jihad activity or historically any jihadi ever seeing any jihadi ever saying, gee, I'm sorry we did that. That was a bad move. That was a tactical error. Do you know of any such?
No.
I think this is the first time that we have ever seen that.
That's pretty impressive, and that shows you it may be difficult for people to learn lessons, but this brings hope for the future, Robert.
They always say that they didn't actually lose, or that they have some terrible thing in store for next time, or that they need to redouble their devotion to Allah, which is, of course, something they say among themselves, not to the infidels. But I've never seen anybody say, wow, we really messed this up. This is unheard of. Yeah,
it's because you're pointing out that they'll always find a way to claim victory. Yes. Like with Hezbollah. Hezbollah was launching rockets, following the October 7th attacks. They're launching them for a year. Israel finally says, okay, you know what? We've had enough. Let's go do something. They blow all their testicles off. With the pager, the brilliant pager scheme, which, guys, I think of some crazy stuff. That never entered my mind. That one never entered my mind as a possibility, which means you're dealing with actual mad scientist level people here. These are mad scientists. Mad scientist is a genius who's also crazy. The fact that they came up with something like that, that's mad scientist stuff. But anyway, so they blow all their testicles off, and then they completely destroy the entire Hezbollah leadership in a week. And every new leader who pops up, they're just like whack-a-mole. They're playing IDF whack-a-mole. They're just destroying these guys left and right. and then eventually when Hezbollah's like, oh, we don't want to fight no more. We don't want to fight no more. Israel's like, okay, let's just stop firing rockets, get out of this area, and we're good. That's all we wanted from you. We don't want to destroy you. We got to destroy. We have to destroy Hamas. We have to completely destroy them until they're completely wiped out. You guys just stay over there, and we're fine. We don't have any problem with you. And so as soon as Hezbollah agrees to that, all over the place, yes, you see, we have defeated the Jews. We have defeated Israel. Like, what? you guys tossed a couple of rockets at them. They blew off the testicles of all your guys, and then they took out your entire leadership. And then you begged for mercy when you realize the Ayatollah is not coming to save you. And that's your victory. But what that really shows is how bad their losses have been. That as long as their group hasn't been completely exterminated, they're taking that as a win now. This is pathetic. Islam is pathetic, man.
I guess Hamas won too then, because
we're still here. You see, we're hiding in tunnels with four the dead mouse, but we're still here. Victory. Yeah. Israel will. Here's the thing, Robert. Hamas to this day could hand over the hostages and surrender everyone who had something to do with the attacks. This is over. It's over overnight. It's done. They will stop. They'll stop firing if you agree to hand the hostages. They've been saying that the entire time. Give us the hostages, and everyone who played a role in the October 7th attacks, surrender. And we're good. We're good. Mm-hmm. Right now, Hamas could do that. Hamas could say, okay, we're handing over the remaining hostages and the bodies, and we're surrendering. And what would Muslims say? You see, we got the ceasefire. We have defeated the Jews. It's pathetic, man. Jihad is pathetic. Kind of makes me wish for the good old days when they had some serious empire or caliphate to deal with. Now it's just pathetic, man. I don't know. I can't even describe it. It's like watching just like the weakest, most pathetic dude that no one wants to fight, because what's the victory in it? And he's still going around, I'm strong. It's so pathetic, man.
Yes, it is. And it's going to get worse, because the Biden administration in its last days has just unveiled the first ever U.S. national strategy to counter Islamophobia.
Well, the timing couldn't be better with all this Islamophobia being such a big problem for us, Robert.
Yes. Well, they say that. Actually, that's a quote from the report. I got it right here. They say in this report that over the last year, we have experienced a sharp increase in discrimination and violence against Muslim, Arab, and Jewish communities in the United States.
Why do they always lump them when the Jews are the target, Robert?
Yes.
I mean, think about this. It's the Muslims going off against the Jews, and then they say, look, if you put all these people together, problems have risen for them over the past year. You know, it reminds me of there was this guy, there's a comedian, Brian Regan, and he said one day, he goes, it was right after Ted Turner gave $1 billion to charity. He gave away $1 billion. And Brian Regan says, Ted Turner just gave $1 billion to charity. And so I can say, together, Ted Turner and I have given slightly over $1 billion to charity. Right? So, in other words, by lumping yourself together with a guy who gave $1 billion, yep. But that's what they're doing. It's like, look, there's all these rapidly increasing hate crimes against Jews. So guess what? Jews and Muslims combined, hate crimes have really gone up over this past year.
Yep. Well, notice also that the first ever U.S. national strategy doesn't deal with anti-Semitism. The White House has not unveiled a strategy to combat anti-Semitism. It has only unveiled a strategy to combat Islamophobia. And so, David, I actually did some work here. I went over to the FBI Crime Data Explorer, and I found that there were 265 anti-Jewish hate crimes, according to the FBI, in the past year. Because remember, the Islamophobia report says over the last year, there has been a sharp increase in discrimination and violence against Muslim, Arab, and Jewish communities. So, 265 hate crimes, according to the FBI, against Jews in the last year. So that must mean that if the White House is on the Islamophobia bandwagon right now, and they're not dealing with anti-Semitism, except with this passing mention in their Islamophobia report, there must be many more anti-Muslim hate crimes, right? There must be. If there were 265 anti-Jewish hate crimes, probably 2,650 anti-Muslim hate crimes. At least.
Since, I mean, America is such a hateful place against Muslims.
So you ready?
Mm-hmm.
24. There were...
We were joking and saying 2,000 and stuff like that. I was assuming at least has to be like 100, 150, something like that.
24. And notice, of course, these are anti-Muslim hate crimes according to the FBI. And we know the FBI is clueless and corrupt. And we know that the kind of people who report hate crimes are Council on American Islamic Relations and other groups that get big profit off them. So we don't know if these alleged 24 hate crimes are things like getting bacon in a sandwich at McDonald's.
Yeah,
You
and situations where people just flat out, oh, I'm going to be late to getting home, and my dad will get mad at me. Therefore, I'll say I was a victim of a hate crime, and a guy in a MAGA hat showed up and roughed me up.
There you
We
go.
know we know they do that because those things have been exposed. But yeah, so I mean, think about this. You've got all these hate crimes against Jews and all these protest. We've seen what has been happening on college campuses with Jews. What does the White House say? We have to do something about Islamophobia. That's after everything that happens. Like,
Yeah.
you could.
You'd almost think those universities get millions of dollars from Qatar.
Yeah, it brings to mind that Norm Macdonald joke where he said, you know what really terrifies me? What if ISIS were able to slip a nuclear bomb across the border and blow up a city of millions of people? Think of the backlash against innocent Muslims. Right? It's like that. He was making a joke that is always the concern of everyone, journalists, politicians, Muslim groups especially. But, oh no, a bunch of people were just slaughtered in the name of Allah. You see, it's persecution of Muslims. It never ends. Like, what are you talking about? You guys killed them. Yeah, but everyone's going to be mad at us.
That's it. Oh man, there's so much stupid infidel stuff today. It's incredible. Oh my goodness. All right, let's go to the FBI. And where is this character? I know I have a picture of him somewhere. There he is. That is Husham Abu Aisha. And he is a Palestinian Arab. And he recently graduated from the FBI National Academy.
What could go
as
wrong?
you can see. And he was given his diploma, and he was announced as Husham Abu Aisha from the State of Palestine.
Awesome.
Now that got a lot of attention because the United States does not actually recognize a state of Palestine. And so it was a bit odd that the FBI is pretending that there is such an entity. But also, Husham Abu Aisha is a member of the Palestinian Authority's security forces, which have been involved in numerous terrorist acts. So why is he getting trained at the FBI? His social media included a video celebrating Saddam Hussein, and his father appears to have been an associate of Yasser Arafat. And the FBI let him set up a table at one of their open house days that he decorated as being an information booth about the state of Palestine, complete with a map that completely erased Israel. And so those are the kind of people who are getting FBI training these days.
Smart.
Who knows what he's going to do with it?
Oh, come on. We know we've seen it over and over again, Robert. You've just seen it too many places, right? You take the UN. Hey, this is a good idea. Listen, different nations can send out representatives, and we can have discussions on important issues that affect the globe and so on. What happens? bunch of jihadis infiltrate the organization and turn it into turn the relief agency into a jihad network.
Very common.
You have the Oxford Union. Oxford Union, very old debate society. They call themselves the last bastion of free speech.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if you saw this, but Masab Hassan Yusuf asked the Oxford Union, how many of them, if you had information, if you knew what was going to happen on October 7th before it happened, would you notify the authorities? 95% of them would not.
Now, we talked about this last week, that they spiked the video, but have they put it back now?
They put up they edited the video. They cropped them out and so on. They cropped out the people who were they cropped out the audience and so on of that. So you couldn't see all the people who were acknowledging that they support attacks against Israeli civilian women and children, because that's what they basically admitted. So anyway, but it was Oxford Union. Great idea. What happens? Ooh, we will use. So notice, what is the United Nations? Hey, all nations get together. They want all nations. We are going to use the good thing that they want to turn this entire thing to our advantage. Oxford Union, they want to show that they're open to various ideas and willing to debate them. We will use their good intentions against them to take over. And the FBI wants to show everyone how diverse and tolerant and open-minded they are right now, and we will use that to fill it up with terrorists. Brilliant strategy. So on the one hand, you have people who specialize in using other people's good intentions, and on the other side, you have a bunch of people who are completely gullible. And when they have good intentions, oh, hey guys, we really want to get along with everybody and invite everyone to join our. Oh, a bunch of terrorists are coming. See, it's working. We're getting along with people. We're making a difference. We're building bridges.
Speaking of all that idiocy, let's go to Australia. This is Aftab Malik. And Aftab Malik is the special envoy to combat Islamophobia for the Australian government.
Can't have enough of those guys.
Indeed. And it turns out that graffiti has been discovered in Sydney, Australia, David.
Oh my goodness.
Yes,
it's the end of the world.
The graffiti said, let me see here, on both sides of an underpass, somebody had written F Islam, and then on a nearby advertisement billboard, cancel Islam. And so Aftab Malik swung into action. He said this was appalling and unacceptable. And he said, regarding the message itself, what was sprayed was appalling, and it's simply unacceptable. It crosses the line from free speech to hate speech. It crosses the line from free speech to hate speech. Now, where is that line, David? What's the distinction for our viewing audience at home between free speech and hate speech?
Are you talking about from an Islamic perspective? Because that would just be anything they don't agree with would be hate speech.
Indeed. Well,
and it's another case of using people's good intentions, because you ask an average Westerner, hey, you like hate speech? No, I don't like hate speech. Oh, well, saying Islam bad, that's hate speech. Saying there's something bad about Islam, that's hate speech.
So this is the problem, that there really is not a legal category called hate speech in Australian law or in American law or anywhere else. Now, there may be soon, but there isn't right now. And the reason is that hate speech is completely subjective as a concept. That what one person thinks is hate speech, another one thinks is courageous truth, spoken against, even against the odds or against people who think that it should not be said. And the problem is that graffiti on an underpass is one thing, but when they crack down on hate speech, they end up ruling out all honest discussion of the motives behind jihad violence to start with.
And I'm thinking in terms of consistency here. And I don't know why people don't do this. They should do this, guys, especially you in Australia. You should be doing this every single time. Every single time someone goes, this says cancel Islam. You see, that's hate speech. Like instantly, you should be quoting what Muhammad said about Jews or something like that, or about Christians, or about anyone. Oh, really? So that's bad? What would you think if it said Muslims are the worst of creatures? What would you think about that? Oh, that would be the ultimate hate speech. That would be the worst speech ever. Should that speech be banned? That's right. That speech should be banned. Okay. Well, no one said that, but the Quran says that Jews and Christians are the worst of creatures. So what should happen there? Well, that's just good. That's our religion. We can do what we want. Okay, now you're true. See, that's how you get them to show their true colors. Their true colors aren't it's wrong to condemn another person's beliefs, or it's wrong to call for violence against another group. That can't be the rule, because what would you do if the end will not come until Muslims fight the Jews, and the Jews are hiding behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees are saying, "Ya Muslim, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him." They'd have a problem with that. They'd have a problem with that if they took what they're saying seriously, right? They do not take what they're saying seriously. They know that you have good intentions and that you are against hate speech, and they use you. They take advantage of your gullibility to ban criticism of Islam. It doesn't have to be that way. It just has. Okay, what are you saying should be banned? Tell me exactly what kind of speech should be banned. Okay, great. Now the Quran's out and the Hadith are out. Is that what you're saying? No? Then shut up. Don't tell me you get to proclaim, fight those who do not believe in Allah. Don't tell us you get to run around praising a prophet who said, I've been commanded to fight against people till they say there's no God but Allah. Don't tell me that it's okay to say that stuff and then tell me I have to ban this other stuff.
Well, actually, that is what they're saying, because I forget what particular initiative it was. I think maybe it was at the UN, but in any case, there was a specific hate speech initiative where the Quran was particularly singled out as being exempt. The religious texts, if they were construed as being hateful, would not be under the rubric of this proposed law banning hate speech.
So Islam gets a special category. Isn't that convenient?
Yes, indeed. As is so often the case. We were talking earlier about Hamas being on the ropes. And this is Khalid Mashal's brother, the last surviving primary leader of Hamas, Khalid Mashal. And that's his brother, Mofid Abdel Kader Mashal, in the center here, and he has just been released from prison. He was sentenced for 20 years for charges of financing Hamas through the Holy Land Foundation, which was once the largest Islamic charity in the United States. But he was released after 16 years, suddenly, without any notice or warning, by the Biden administration this past week. And it made me wonder, are they trying to send reinforcements to the Hamas leadership as a gesture of goodwill?
I actually find it really interesting what's been going on these past couple of weeks with the outgoing administration in terms of I don't know. Is it like the people who were the Biden loyalists really ticked off that the party threw him under the bus and went in a different direction, and so they're trying to screw the entire party. We're going to make you guys look as crazy and insane as possible on our way out. Or since we don't have the highest view of Biden's cognitive faculties right now, is it just a bunch of people who are pulling the strings? Like, okay, now we have one final chance for the next several years to do a bunch of stuff we want. So let's just screw up as much stuff as possible right now, or push as much of the stuff. Anyway, we don't have to worry about exposing our true colors because we're about to go out, not realizing the midterm election's right around the corner. That's 2 years. The midterm election's 2 years, and then you got another presidential election in 4 years. If you do all this absolutely insane stuff and you just let all these guys out of prison and help all these terrorists, and I don't know if people are going to forget that quickly.
We'll see. They have a good track record of forgetting real quickly. But in any case, all right, let's do, before we go here, let's do some jihad violence. There's always jihad violence and jihad plotting. Oh, wrong guy. Sorry.
When's the jihad peace and tolerance, Robert?
Yeah, that's coming. We'll do that next week. This is
Good.
Mohammed Chipa. Chhipa. Mohammed Chipa. And he's a cheaper jihadi than the more expensive ones. And he is in Springfield, Virginia. Near Washington, D.C. And he was arrested for sending $74,000 in Bitcoin to a very beautiful Islamic State Muslima, Dujana. And she was in Syria. He also, apparently trying to impress this fair lady, he had materials for building explosives also at the ready in Springfield, Virginia. And so, yes?
Oh, just in his defense, Robert.
Yes?
If he wants to get a hot jihadi chick, how is he supposed to go about this, Robert?
He's got to impress her with his jihadi credentials.
You have to shower her. You have to shower her with money, make it rain, show that you can provide financially, and show that you're a serious jihadi too. Because she's like, "What? I'm in Syria. You're in Virginia? Come on, you're not serious." Yes, look at these pictures. I'll do OnlyFans, but my OnlyFans jihad page is just me showing off my weapons. What else are you gonna do, right? So. You know, everyone has to play the hand they're dealt, Robert. And this guy looks like a complete dork. If he wants a hot jihadi bride, then this is what he's got to do.
Okay. Meanwhile, we have actual violent jihad in Africa, as always, in Niger, near the border with Nigeria. Boko Haram jihadis have killed 14 fishermen. They were fishing. And they all had their throats cut. Because, of course, the Quran says, as we have discussed many times, when you meet the unbelievers, strike the necks.
Hold on.
Yes.
Waiting for the college protesters to be screaming about this.
Yeah.
Huh, nothing. Weird.
It's odd. It is odd.
It's weird. People say no Jews, no news, but it's true.
Yep. In Taraba State, Nigeria, a Christian pastor and a Christian woman from his church were murdered by jihadis this past week. And let's see. We had.
And if you were to go up to these college protesters, or to the outgoing administration, or to journalists around the world and say, "Hey, jihadis just went after a Christian pastor. What should be done? We need to crack down on Islamophobia and
right.
Israel. That's what we need to do. Islamophobia and Israel. Those are the enemies, everyone. Those are the enemies. Really, not all the people like going around slaughtering everyone in the name of Allah. No. It's Islamophobia.
That's it, man. And we saw this in the Netherlands this past week. A Dutch court sentenced a woman to 10 years in prison. Hasna A. She got 10 years in prison for keeping a Yazidi woman as a slave while she was living in the Islamic State's domains in Syria some years ago. Mm-hmm. She made the slave woman do household chores for her and look after her son. She was convicted of enslavement, membership of a terrorist organization promoting terrorist crimes, and endangering her young son. So, what I thought was interesting was that there was absolutely no discussion during her trial or conviction or any of the news coverage about
where they got the idea.
Precisely. It's just like this crazy lady went from the Netherlands to Syria and decided to get a slave. And nobody seems to be in the slightest degree curious as to where she got this idea.
And people, I mean, Robert, see, if you're talking about a terrorist attack or something like that, yeah, it's, you know, it's bad and you want to deal with that and so on. I don't think of a terrorist attack as like capable of destroying a civilization or something like that. It's okay. There's a terrorist attack and some people are going to die. If you deal with it, okay, it's bad. It had bad consequences and so on. It's not something that's like going to destroy your civilization or something. But this level of stupidity and ignorance and silencing all criticism of Islam. Think about, so you have an ISIS bride who was known to have a Yazidi slave. How does she view Muslim? How does this woman view Muslims? How does she view non-Muslims? She believes Muslims are superior to non-Muslims and should enslave them whenever they have the opportunity. And you're going to say, okay, let's put this woman in prison. What's she going to be doing in prison? She's going to be doing prison dawah. She's going to be convincing other Muslim women in the prison that this is how they're supposed to think. They're going to be forcing other female inmates to convert, making the next generation of freaking terrorist brides. And the government will not utter a word about any of this because they don't want to seem Islamophobic. There's nothing you can do as long as you treat Islam this way. You are doomed. You're absolutely doomed. If you go if some of your people go and they join ISIS and then they come back and we say, we're sentencing you to 10 years. Okay, what are they doing for 10 years? They're building an army for the next 10 years. That's what they're doing. That's right. What they're doing. And then you're going to release them. And now there are more of them. Oh, we're going to lock them more up. Okay, you can't win like this. You're doomed. You're doomed. I'm not saying you're doomed no matter what. I'm saying the way you're doing things right now, you are, as the French say, les screwed.
And here's more. This is the Al-Ikhlas Mosque in Reutlingen, Germany. And the Al-Ikhlas Mosque was the official partner of the city of Reutlingen. But now there is a controversy there because they found out that they were reciting the Quran, and they said, kill the unbelievers wherever you find them. And the German authorities, they're shocked because they think this is now an extremist mosque. Just the absurdity is just mind-boggling. What do they think they're saying in the other mosques?
Yeah, you know what that reminds me of, Robert? This was several years ago, probably 10 or 12 years ago, but there was this document that was signed by a bunch of Hollywood actors and so on and producers and so on, and it was condemning Hamas, and it condemned them for their charter. And it said, for instance, Hamas says in their charter that the end will not come until Muslims fight the Jews and Jews hide behind rocks and trees, and the rocks and trees say, Ya Muslim, there's a Jew behind me, come and kill him. And you had, just tons of Hollywood actors and directors and producers and so on signing this. Yes, we condemn this vile statement. Like, that's from Muhammad. What's wrong with you? And what do you think? What do you think Sunni Muslims believe? You're acting like this is something that this terrorist group came up with. It's not. It's something they mention from Muhammad. Guess what? Any of your Sunni Muslims they believe that. They all believe that. And you're condemning it and you think it's just some weird thing that this one group believes. But similar thing there is, oh my goodness, these guys believe in the Quran? Oh, what a weird mosque.
Yeah, because kill the idolaters wherever you find them. That's chapter 9, verse 5. You have kill them wherever you find them repeated in chapter 2, verse 191 and chapter 4, verse 89. And so the idea that there's a mosque anywhere in Germany that does not recite these passages at one time or another is ridiculously naive on the part of the German authorities. But that's nothing new. We have seen that many, many times. And speaking of naive, we have a story out of Britain. This will probably wrap us up here. Where is he? I knew I had him here. This is Amir Khalil. And Amir Khalil stomped on a guy's head during the recent unrest in Britain. But never fear, He's just been sentenced to 34 months in prison. So that'll fix everything, will it not?
Yeah, 34 months in prison. Oh, well, always, what could go wrong?
Yes. He's likely to emerge from prison more of a jihadi than he is already. But the British authorities have no idea of that whatsoever. And so they just continue to make the same mistakes again and again and again. And because they do, we will likely be here. Oh no, next week is the 25th of December. I expect we will not be here next week, but we will shoot for the. Does that mean that the one after that is New Year's Eve?
Let me see. Let me see. Although, Robert, I have to. Yeah. No. The week after that will be January the 1st.
Oh, okay. So we could do that one if you're free.
I have to say, Robert, I have to
Yes,
say, yeah, we should probably weigh against Christmas Day. If there were some horrible Christmas attack, we might need to spring into action like Batman and Robin.
Okay, you got it. And so if there is jihad, we'll be there. And you can catch us here the next time. Until then, pray, hope, and don't worry.